The stars above the crystal towers of Kylara burned with cold indifference, glittering like distant promises that the queen of the Helvian Empire often wondered she might never touch. Her palace, a vast structure of translucent walls and gleaming halls, was filled with the soft hum of machinery and the quiet bustle of her attendants. Yet, despite the constant activity, the queen remained alone each night, seated on her high dais, contemplating the emptiness of power and isolation. Her name was Leora, and though she ruled over billions with wisdom and precision, no advisor, minister, or diplomat could fill the gap of solitude she felt after the ceremonial end of each day. Her species valued formality, ritual, and hierarchy, but none understood the yearning that pulsed in her chest, a longing that was more than politics or duty. It was on the 23rd night of her solitude that a human appeared in the palace courtyard. Humans were rare in Helvian space, and most of them arrived only as envoys or reluctant explorers. But this one, a young man named Caleb, carried an air of quiet determination. His uniform marked him as a volunteer for the exploration corps, those who risked the unknown to understand other civilizations. Yet something in his gaze suggested he had chosen a different kind of volunteer work, one far from any assignment he had been officially given. The attendants noticed him first. They whispered in their melodic tongue, which carried no harsh consonants, only soft vowels and rising tones. "A human here?" one asked, her translucent skin shimmering faintly. "He is bold or foolish." Caleb did not falter. He walked steadily toward the throne room, where Leora waited, her posture elegant but tinged with the weight of loneliness. When she saw him, she raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "Human," she said in her careful Helvian-accented common, "your presence here is unexpected. State your purpose." Caleb bowed respectfully, keeping his tone even. "Your Majesty, I am here because I volunteered. I understand the customs are unusual, and my offer may seem forward, but I wish to accompany you through your evening solitude. I wish to understand your world, not as an observer, but as a companion, even if only for a time." The queen tilted her head, studying him. Few humans had ventured beyond the initial diplomatic engagements, and fewer still had spoken with such honesty. There was a faint audacity in his words, but also a warmth, a quality she had almost forgotten existed in her life. "You wish to be near me while I sit alone?" she asked, her tone more curious than reproachful. "Do you understand what that entails? You will witness the quiet, the contemplation, the emptiness." "I do," he replied without hesitation. "And I believe the emptiness is easier to bear together." Leora considered him. For centuries, her nights had been filled with silence, and the soft glow of the palace lights reflecting off her jeweled crown. She had grown accustomed to it, but not immune. And now, faced with a human who offered understanding rather than fear or flattery, she felt a flicker of something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. "Very well," she said finally. "You may join me. But heed this. There are rules in my solitude. Speak only when asked, and observe with respect." Caleb inclined his head. "I understand, Your Majesty." That evening, he followed her into the vast observation chamber, where walls of transparent crystal allowed a view of the galaxy stretching endlessly beyond. The stars were not just lights. They were the histories of countless civilizations, silent witnesses to the rise and fall of empires. Leora took her seat on the elevated dais, and Caleb positioned himself a respectful distance away. As instructed, hours passed without conversation. Leora meditated, her thoughts weaving through the threads of governance, legacy, and the burden of immortality that her species carried. Caleb observed quietly, absorbing the subtleties of her expressions, the rise and fall of her shoulders, the way her eyes reflected the distant constellations. In this quiet, he began to understand the depth of her isolation, not just the absence of company, but the weight of a life lived above others, where connection was a rare commodity. Finally, Liara spoke, her voice almost a whisper. "Why do you insist on this, human? Others would fear me, or at least keep distance. Why stay?" Caleb looked at her steadily. "Because I see something you do not, Your Majesty. I see that even those who rule the stars deserve someone to share the quiet moments. Loneliness is not a duty, it is a burden, and no one should bear it alone if they do not choose to." Leora was silent for a long time. The attendants outside had left the chamber, leaving only the soft hum of energy conduits. She had never considered that a human could perceive her isolation in such a way. In her empire, companions were often expected to flatter, to assist in protocol, or to entertain. But this human offered only presence. And in that presence, she felt the stirrings of relief and understanding. Days turned into weeks, and Caleb continued to join her. At first, their interactions were minimal. He observed, he listened, he asked questions only when permitted. But gradually, Leora found herself sharing fragments of her thoughts, recounting memories of her early years as queen, the loss of family members to cosmic plagues, the political battles she had fought and won. Caleb never judged, never offered unsolicited advice. He simply absorbed, and in return, his calm. Steady humanity provided a counterpoint to her calculated existence. One night, as the twin moons of Kylara cast silver light across the palace, Leora spoke more openly than she ever had. "I once thought immortality would be a gift. Centuries of knowledge, the power to shape worlds. But I did not anticipate the weight of witnessing history without a companion." Caleb nodded. "I cannot imagine what that is like, but I can be here with you. That is enough for me." Her gaze lingered on him. "Enough? Perhaps it is. You remind me that even in the vastness of space, even in the height of power, connection matters more than supremacy. The humans called it empathy, the ability to feel with another. For Leora, it was a lesson in humility. Her empire could continue without a human companion, but she realized that her own spirit had grown stagnant in isolation. Caleb had shown her that even the smallest acts of presence could transform the weight of eternity into something bearable. As months passed, the quiet companionship deepened. Leora and Caleb shared the simple routines of her evenings, observing celestial phenomena, listening to ancient Helvian music, tracing the histories of planets long extinct. Occasionally, Caleb introduced small human customs, a shared meal, a story, a game of chance, which fascinated Leora not because of novelty, but because of the subtle joy they brought her. She had known happiness in triumph and conquest, but this was something different, the happiness of being seen and understood. The Helvian court began to notice the change in their queen. Her decisions became swifter, her judgments fairer, and her demeanor softened. The alien ministers whispered among themselves, debating the influence of a human volunteer on the centuries-old protocols of the palace. Yet even as they murmured, Leora's presence commanded respect. She was the queen, and now she carried a lightness in her step that no decree could mandate. One evening, as they watched a comet streak across the sky, Leora asked Caleb quietly, "Do you not fear the expectations of your kind? To be here so far from your home, among the stars of a foreign empire?" Caleb smiled. "Fear is natural, but courage is choice. I chose to be here because some things are worth the risk. Your solitude was one of them." Her expression softened. "You humans speak in ways that surprise me. You are fearless in the face of uncertainty, and yet patient in the smallest of moments. I admire that." Caleb bowed slightly, a gesture that Leora had come to appreciate for its sincerity. "And I admire you, Your Majesty, not for your power or your crown, but for your willingness to let me share your nights." In time, Liara realized that the line between observation and companionship had blurred. The queen who had spent centuries in lonely contemplation now looked forward to the quiet presence of a human at her side. She found herself sharing laughter and quiet amusement, and sometimes even seeking his counsel on matters beyond the stars. Her empire remained vast, but her heart had grown expansive as well. The first anniversary of Caleb's voluntary service arrived, and Liara decided to honor it in a way that was uniquely her own. She led him to the grand observation deck at the palace's apex, where the stars themselves seemed to bow in acknowledgement. In her hand, she held a crystal orb, an ancient Helvian token of trust and esteem. "Human," she said, her voice steady, "you came to me out of choice, not duty. You offered companionship when none was sought, and in doing so, you reminded me that even a queen may need another soul to share the night. For this, I grant you the highest honor my people can bestow. You are welcome to remain by my side, not as a servant, nor as a guest, but as a companion of equal standing." Caleb's eyes widened. I do not know what to say." "Say nothing," Liara replied, her gaze softening. "Only stay, and let us continue to meet the nights together, as equals, as friends, as something more if we allow it." He nodded, understanding that some gifts were beyond words. In that moment, amid the hum of the palace and the eternal stretch of stars, the alien queen who had spent centuries alone finally found a companion who chose her not for power or glory, but for presence, for courage, and for the quiet. Enduring light of humanity got from that night onward, the palace of Kelara was no